episode of Branding and the Beast.
Woohoo!
This is season 2, episode 7.
Craziness.
Oh, we are talking about something so important to me: female leaders in the workplace, how they're branded, how they're stereotyped, how they're branded too. I could not be more excited to be talking about this in our episode today.
I'm excited. I assume I will have much to learn. So I'm going to play the hungry student.
Well, you'll probably have much to offer too, I think.
I'll have a couple things. I have some thoughts and some questions. So I'm excited to see where we go.
Awesome. Well, my name is Alicia DeSantis, one of two wonderful hosts of this show. I am owner of 38th and Kip Studio, graphic design, branding, and illustration studio. And my wonderful co host.
I'm the other guy. My name is Sean Bernstein, and I am the owner and chief storyteller because when you own the company, you can call yourself whatever you want. So, owner and chief storyteller of the Right Stuff Agency. It's great to see you as always, and it's great to be recording again. It's really nice to be back in the studio.
It is. It is really nice. 2023 was a little wild for a lot of people. So
Us
it's
included.
nice to, yeah, it's nice to get back into it. And we have two, well, let me back up. This is our first episode where we have two guests. So I am
Yeah, I
very
didn't think of
excited
that.
about that as well. So today, I'm trying to segue into this because it's so much to unpack. So we're going to be talking about female leaders in the workplace. We are featuring Lauren Culp, who is CEO of CUInsight, media company for credit unions, and her partner, Robbie Young, who is the VP of Strategic Outreach, also at CUInsight. They are the leading credit union media company. No one can even touch them and what they've grown over the past few years. And what I love about them is that you don't see a lot of media companies where women are the executive team. So that's really fascinating to me how they've overcome, especially in the financial services, which is traditionally very male dominated. They've grown this media company to something very massive, and they're very strong, powerful leaders.
I'm so excited to work with them. What did I call us yesterday? We are the largest binational credit union adjacent branding podcast.
There's
Um,
something quasi is
yeah,
in there too.
quasi credit union. We're not. I don't work for a credit union. I've never worked for. I have credit union clients now, which is wonderful, but I've never actually worked in the credit union space. But seem to have found our niche, given your expertise in the world of credit unions.
Yeah, well, it's not just about the credit unions, it's about women. And, preparing for this episode, I pulled some stats. It's so mind-blowing. So let me make sure I'm given the right stat here. But it is, let's see. US Department of Research reports 2023, women were still only making 84 cents on the dollar that men were making. I mean, it's feel like it was stuck at 75 cents for the longest time, and now it's still something despite the progress, the innovation, the inclusiveness, everything we're moving forward as a culture. Women in the workplace, they're still, despite what anyone would say, they're still seen as the lesser individual. Some industries more than others. And it's just crazy to think that it's still something that's hanging on after all these years.
I teach pay equity when I teach my employment law class, and actually, my best friend is one of the leading pay equity specialists in Ontario. So I've known some of those numbers, and I'll bet you most men probably would not believe there's still that big of a pay gap when it
Yeah.
comes to gender parity. Uh, we're not exposed to it, and we don't see it. And you sometimes just don't know what you don't know when we have our heads in the sand. And when I tell people those numbers, it's really I think it's about the same up here as what you just quoted, and they're shocked. but it's still there's the national one of the national magazines up here, Maclean's, which has been around for like 100 something years, did a whole full issue about the pay gap a couple of years ago, and they charge different prices for the magazine for men and for women. They said this
Interesting.
magazine is X dollars for men and X for women, and boldly on the cover, that was their cover piece,
Oh,
and
I
it
love that.
wow, did that ever hit home?
I love that. I mean, on that note, talking about the media, and it's interesting that we're interviewing two folks from the media, but advertising in the media really isn't doing us any favors. So, thinking back, I was racking my brain to try to think of an ad or some sort of piece of content that really was representative of women leaders in the workplace. And I could not find a single one. And I'm going to pitch the same question to Robbie and Lauren in a minute here. But all I could think about, the one that just kept popping into my head, was that Peloton ad from the Christmas one from 2019. And for those watching and listening who aren't familiar with it, uh, it's of a professional woman. She has small children, fancy house, and her husband or partner gets her a Peloton for Christmas and surprises her. She's rail thin, just professional woman who she chronicles in a video blog her journey of using the Peloton over the course of a year. And her and her partner, a year later, are sitting on the couch watching her video blog of her using the Peloton at 6 a.m., getting up before the kids get up in this like
Peloton,
gorgeous
Peloton.
room. Peloton?
Yeah, Peloton.
Peloton. See, that's how little I know about the companies. I'm
Oh,
I'm pronouncing it wrong. And I know you have a Peloton.
I'm a Peloton obsessive, so I will give you my thoughts on the ad after. But anyway, go on.
That's all I have to say about it. That's all I have to say about the ad itself. Did you know that that ad cost them, let's see here, 1.5 billion in value shortly after it
I'm
aired?
not surprised. I'm and I knowing kind of the cult of Peloton, and that I'm sure we have listeners who are sort of on the leaderboard themselves. I could see probably where the intentions of the ad were, but it ended up being such a misstep and such a misfire, and that it really sent the wrong message. It's the message I think that people within the Peloton community sent to each other, like, hey, like follow your progress, track your rides, being on the leaderboard, etc. I'm, as you could probably see if you're watching the video, the last one you'd expect to take a spin class, and I am all in. I have become such a devotee. I love it. I have drank the Kool-Aid. And so if you have, I see where they were going with it. That said, I think it was such a misfire of, oh, this is just sending this is a media misfire, sending a terrible message.
Yeah, that's the biggest one that comes to mind. I mean, the other one for the sake of time here, and I'll probably get some backlash on this one, but a huge pet peeve of mine as a female professional is the term boss babe.
Hmm.
I cannot stand it. I think it's patronizing. I think it is juvenile. I think it dilutes the real work that we're doing. It's always accompanied in that brush script with glitter or some kind of like it's in like a coffee tumbler or something.
Yeah, I can see where you see that. I 100% can see where you see it.
Yeah. That's my 2 cents. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I can't stand that term boss babe.
Well, it's funny. I went into the my friends own a UPS store just north of me for shipping and such. I had to go ship something out, so I went to go visit, and it's a husband and wife team, but it's really her business. And her name tag says Lady Boss underneath her name. And I never noticed it before, but actually I noticed it. And she said, "Yeah, she loves it." I'm like, "Yep, no, it is. I know that business. It is very much her business." He, because he has a little bit more time, is very much the marketing promo guy. So he's kind of out doing a lot of the networking and the hustle and the local events and such. But it is her business. So it was interesting to see sort of how they balance that out. And she liked it, but she's not the boss babe and glitter
Mhm.
type of, but some folks will be, some aren't. I'm sure it's all different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a wild world out there from women, I will tell you. It's wild out there for men, but there's layers to it with women that just, man, it's
Most
like
definitely.
trying to, you know, work through a labyrinth blindfolded sometimes and.
I have so much to learn, and I'm excited to hear what our guests have to say. Shall we bring them on?
Yes, I would love to bring them on. So, let's go ahead and do it.
Let us welcome our guests.
All right. And welcome back, everyone. We have two exceptional women here on our show today, Lauren Culp and Robbie Young, both at CUInsight, the leading credit union publication. So glad to have you both here.
Thank you. We're
Thank
excited to
you.
be here.
This is our very first episode, like I said in our introduction, where we have two people. So there's four personalities on this thing, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. But Sean, you have to behave yourself.
We're gonna have to pit Lauren and Robbie against each other at a point counterpoint and have them just fire back and forth like a political
See,
pundit panel. That's the only way to make this work.
do you guys have anything you disagree on?
Probably not. I think it's going to be
I
hard to
don't think so.
fit
Not even like microwaving fish in the or at lunch or something like
Yeah,
Well, I
salmon.
mean, I don't think Lauren has much qualms with the way my work from home office food, so not hasn't been discussed.
Yes, we'll find. I'm confident we'll find something by the end of the show. So bear with me here. I'm going to pull up your bios and read them. So if you see my eyes darting around, that's what I'm doing here. So Lauren, we'll start with you. You are president and CEO at CUInsight, which is, like I said, leading trade publication. You guys have really taken this thing from grassroots to really blowing truly everyone else out of the water. I don't think there's any other media that touches you at this point, which is pretty incredible.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your kind words. It's just a lot of fun to be able to connect the credit union industry. So we love what we do, and I think it's one of those things when you really believe in the work, it's easy to have a lot of fun doing it.
Absolutely. So Lauren has over a decade of industry experience. She's the leader at CUInsight. She works with organizations serving credit unions to maximize their brand and exposure. Represents a trade publication at credit union events across the globe. She's professionally trained and accomplished speaker and facilitator. She presents to audiences of all sizes. She's a certified credit union development educator and I3 program alum. Also spent time at Filene Research Institute and with a credit union before coming over to CUInsight. So, for those who aren't familiar with the movement, those are some pretty big names that I just threw out there and very well educated and accomplished.
Thanks, Alicia.
And Robbie Young is Vice President of Strategic Growth at CUInsight. She is a certified credit union development educator designation, strengthen industry connections. Her strategies have helped establish CUInsight as an essential resource. I could definitely agree with that. I've been doing business with CUInsight for about 5, 6 years now. Her advocacy for mental health awareness is a personal and professional mission. As an American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Talk Saves Lives presenter, Robbie actively promotes empathy and support, enhancing her influence in the credit union community and highlighting the importance of mental well-being. Thank you so much for being on the show. I have mad respect for both of you, and really I'm excited to ask you these questions and get your insight on a topic that really is something that, as we talked about earlier on the show, one that it seems like the world keeps moving forward, but women in the workplace stay stagnant.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. And I think the pandemic also, we see research says it set women back, years and years in terms of some of the progress that was made. So I'm excited to talk about kind of pushing us all forward.
Sweet. Well, let's do it. So, on that note, what are some common stereotypes you have seen about professional women and how they are marketed to?
I don't know that there is just one stereotype that we see. I think probably every woman has experienced being treated differently in different ways or held to different expectations than her male colleagues are. I think at the end of the day, all of us are really responsible for creating a safe environment that allows everyone to show up authentically and perform their very best because of that. And creating a psychologically safe workspace too is really important in that stuff. I know Robbie has got a lot of thoughts around what that means and the mental health component that can get overlooked. And it doesn't feel good to come to work every day and to have to put on a different persona or to say, okay, I can't let my colleagues know about this in my life. And so that I think is big because a lot of times women do feel that way. They do feel that they have to say, oh, you know what, I might get labeled emotional if I say something like this about my family, or my commitment to the workplace might be questioned if I act this way. So that psychologically safe workspace is so important. And I know Robbie can probably share a lot more than I can here. She is such a mental health champion and so inspiring to us. But Robbie, what do you think?
Well, thanks, Lauren. So, yeah, definitely a lot of things to touch on there, but in just addressing stereotypes at the high level, I think it's really crucial to pivot away from focusing on gender and instead really emphasize universal traits for what makes a really effective, strong leader: resilience, empathy, adaptability. Mental health definitely plays a significant role here. Leaders really need to advocate for environments that prioritize psychological safety and wellness. And when you are prioritizing these things, you're really ensuring that you're making spaces where team members, regardless of their gender, feel seen and heard and supported. And at the end of the day, we all really want that. Emphasizing mental health really removes those stigmas and ensures that seeking help, managing stress, all those things that go along with just day-to-day life in general now are seen as strengths and not weaknesses.
I love that.
I'm going to piggyback on that question, Robbie. And look, I am not a women leader. I think that is evident. What I am, funny enough, is a workplace mental health advocate. I used to be a workplace mental health lawyer once upon a time. So I've done a lot of work in that space, and I'm pretty passionate about it myself. And so, great advice. I'd like to follow up. I'm curious, where have you seen that done well? Like in terms of leadership, where have you seen, leaders really taking the forefront? What kind of concrete steps, if there's a story, an example you want to share of a leader who's really put
Um,
mental
I
health?
I think we see it so much in our space and in the credit union space in general. The credit unions and industries serving credit unions have really adopted an openness and really have taken the credit union mindset of being on the forefront and the progressive end of a lot of things, mental health being one of those. For example, I started, adding to my calendar, and I know no one needs to know it, but I've added to my calendar that this is my um, therapy session and this is the time of the day that I go, and it's not to hope, and it's not in hopes that anybody else feels they have to do that, but it's in hopes that they know that they're in a space where if they want to share that, or they just want to take the time to make sure they're focusing on themselves, they can. Because as you know, as mental health and physical health are one and the same. And as soon as we can get everyone on board in that mindset, we'll be in a much healthier environment and world.
Sean, did you have anything you wanted to add on that from your experience with litigation or anything like that?
It's interesting. I've certainly seen more examples. It is a serious workplace problem. It's a serious business problem, as I'm sure you both know as leaders, because the hit to productivity and the hit, that absenteeism plays in terms of sort of financial drain on corporations. And I think employers are finally starting to see it. So it's great to hear these examples, that it is coming to the forefront. It is an open conversation, normalizing going to therapy, normalizing. I came up at a law firm where they all meditated. Meditation was a routine part of the work. And, each of the partners would take 10, 15 minutes out of the day, lights off, door closed, not to disturb them. they really leaned into it quite heavily. It was a great environment to train in. So I have seen it, where it does become a priority, and I hope that goes broader. So thank you.
Lauren, I'll ask you first. And I never want to just focus on the negative. So I try to phrase this question: challenges and opportunities you faced as a female leader, as a female CEO, from your current role to rising up into this role that you serve now. Can you share some experiences that you faced?
Yeah, and I love asking other women. I think when you've got a space that is really safe, it's easy for everyone to kind of start sharing their stories and experiences. And I also don't necessarily like to focus on all of the same experiences, because we move forward and we're trying to build something better together. And so in some ways, there are things like, okay, I might have gotten feedback, hey, you're too confident. It's like, well, what does that actually mean? Would you tell a man in my role that he's too confident, or that sort of thing? Or sometimes you go to a conference and it's like, oh, well, is this your dad? And it's like, no, actually, I run this company, thank you for assuming that I'm someone's daughter, that kind of thing. And I think it's a human thing, right? It's not a big deal because I'm a CEO in my 30s, I'm a woman. It's unusual, and I think all of us have had stumbles like that where we're like, oh, I didn't, I had this hidden bias, I didn't even think about it. And what I've learned for myself is all of us have hidden biases, and it is a constant act of trying to uncover those things in us and also take actionable steps to say, okay, where am I maybe biased in a way I didn't think about? Where am I saying these things that might be perceived a certain way? And I think it's really important when you have a platform to take it beyond just the things you experience. And so, I would say, okay, I've got experiences as a woman, but what I don't have is experiences as a woman of color. And they have much steeper barriers than white women face. And so really calling attention to the things where, I want to be an ally for other people who are experiencing things that I'm not. We talk about women's issues, but what about, non-binary folks and their struggles in leadership and that sort of thing? And so I think it's also really taking the feedback around you from the people you trust, turning the volume up on those people that you really trust. So if I get feedback and I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with this, I might take it to someone in my network and say, what do you think about this? Do you think this is something I should turn the volume down on or turn the volume up on? Where do I feel that this fits into kind of the overall narrative of my performance or my career? Most of us will hear conflicting feedback at some points, but I think all feedback is a gift in some form. So even if I don't agree with it, there's a lot to be learned from kind of that person providing it. And it's all about, there's a grain of salt in there somewhere that I can take with it. But also there's probably a grain of truth. There might be something, okay, maybe it's not about me, but it's about my relationship with this person. If they think this way and I'm getting feedback I don't agree with, it probably says that there's something I need to work on that relationship with, if it's a boss or a colleague or whatever it is. So I think it's about being open. There are always challenges no matter who you are. And I also like to take a moment to recognize there are so many really great men in the workplace who have supported me and kind of pushed me along and opened doors for me that wouldn't have been opened otherwise. And so it's not about, there are challenges. All of us face challenges. As a woman, you might face more challenges in the workplace related to your gender than somebody else might. But I think at the same time, we can all really support and push each other forward. So that's my little soapbox as far as all that goes. And I think just taking that moment to say, you know what, there are issues that other people are experiencing that I'm not experiencing. And I want to be sure that I'm also calling attention to those things and pushing forward kind of that sort of world too, where it's not just women, but it's also women of color, and it's also people who don't conform to gender standards in the same way that we've always expected, and that sort of thing. So a little bit of, there are challenges. There's a lot of opportunity too, I think, to not only support one another, but to support everybody around us.
I love that. We were talking about Sean before before you got on. We were talking about seventh, eighth, ninth wave feminists. What wave were we at? The feminists that feel that everyone should be treated with empathy and respect, not just women. And that's the camp I fall into. Is that my experiences? Just because I experience something negatively does not mean someone else should be treated negatively. It's not like a direct seesaw correlation, right? We can all become better as a species and all work through all the different pain and stereotypes we've experienced. So I love that.
So I'm reminded a little bit of even as a child, I've always been described as a person who really wears their heart on their sleeve or has a big personality. I can hear my mom saying like, "Oh, Robbie's gonna cry." So initially, I saw these characteristics as really at odds with my perception of what it was to be a leader. I really thought that as a leader, you had to know all the answers and really make swift decisions. But my experience have taught me that immense value in vulnerability and emotional intelligence is what makes a outstanding leader, whatever gender they fall into. Um, Acknowledging uncertainties and really collaborating closely with my team is not a sign of weakness, but really a strength and allows for unity and support amongst your team and organization. Um, this realization profoundly shaped my approach to leadership, um, allowing me to prioritize my mental health and inclusivity alongside my productivity, ensuring that everyone on my team feels valued and heard, very empathetic, as you mentioned. Um, so really what I learned is my big personality is and likely always has been an asset and really allowed me to connect and champion the world I want to be a part of and the world I want to create.
I love that. That hits close to home for me too. Is a very emotional person. Cry over everything.
Hmm. I still probably can.
It's an interesting conversation for me because I grew up with a mother who had practiced law before I was born. So we're talking mid 80s. And her approach and her perspective is obviously very different than it would be today. Don't take any guff. Boys will be boys. They hit, but you hit. They hit, so you hit back. Really kind of tough as nails. In a very different world that really didn't recognize some of the other challenges as much. Challenges of minority women and women of color in leadership, and non-binary and women, etc., and trans women was just not even part of the greater conversation that it is now. So this is a different generation of leadership. Give it 10, 15 years, you'll be in those senior leadership roles, as sort of the elder leaders, the kids coming up today in college and what have you, who are the leaders of tomorrow. Feel free to get out the crystal ball. I'm curious as to your perspective for both of you. What do you see changing for that? We feel so enlightened given what I was just talking about. What do you see for that next generation? Where is women in leadership and leadership in general going next? And what can we teach them from our experience?
Robbie, you
Well,
got
I can speak to that a little bit. I actually think a lot about how excited I am because I am, I enjoy TikTok in my downtime, and that's how I consume a lot of media. And it's really showed me that the generations coming up are really going to speak for what they believe in. You are not going to wrong them without having to hear about it and how it should be, and ways that we should move forward in correcting it. Um, Thankfully, the conversations that I'm having now focused on mental health are already being talked about with the generations much younger than me. So I really hope and I really think that the leaders we see in the future will be even more well-rounded, have a very, very natural grasp on work life balance and what it means to love your family and your career and be all the things you want to be, and figure out how to balance that completely according to how you want it to be balanced. So that's exciting for me.
Yeah. I am a millennial, and I think when we were kind of coming up and entering the workforce, everyone loved to hate on millennials. And it did such a disservice to both the people in that generation and the people who were maybe kind of hating on them. And as we see Gen Z and behind them Gen Alpha coming up and entering the workforce and making their opinions known, I feel exactly the opposite. I don't want to hate on them. I want to support them. I hope that they take the world and make it better alongside us. And it does such a disservice to everyone when you slap a label on any generation and try to say that this is who they are. And I think when we see younger women and younger men and younger folks who are non-binary coming up into the workforce or just as coming to coming of age as adults, I see in them, I think, the same desire to say, I want to have a good life, but I also want to support the people around me being able to do that too. I have a lot of hope as well. Robbie, I know Robbie said she's excited. I'm already hearing all the conversations that Robbie and her daughters are having about all of the different things that exist in our world. And to me, I am really hopeful that we will get to a point where no one will say female CEO, because that implies that a standard CEO is not a woman. I hate the phrase female CEO, woman CEO, female leader. I want to get rid of them because I want inherently in the word CEO and the word leader and the word executive, I want woman to be just as much a part of that qualifier as a man would be. And so to me, I hope it's a world where we don't have to have the conversations around what does it look like to be a woman in the workforce, because it's so normal, because women make up at least, if not more than 50%, at least 50%, if not more, of the leadership, and also throughout the organization at the board level, at the big companies, at the small companies. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We're moving that direction, and I'm excited for a world where it's just a standard. It's just kind of the cost of doing business. It's the entry level. There's not anything crazy about having a lot of women in the organization.
I love that. And I'm also wondering if maybe I should change the title of this podcast episode because it's female leaders.
Sorry, Alicia. And I think
Leaders, we just say leaders.
Just leaders.
I think it's still valid because today isn't that day. Today we still say, okay, there's importance in lifting up that women in leadership are really important to have. And so I wouldn't change it.
Yes. I'm just giving you a hard time.
And that's how I identify. So I'm okay with being a female leader. I identify she, her. I'm good with that.
So this is a branding podcast. So I always have to add some insights around branding and marketing. So I want to ask you, and I'm actually really eager to get your guys' thoughts on this, because I could not come up with a single example of any type of media or content or ad that really was a representation of what it's like to be a female leader. And we talked at length in the intro about, I'm going to pronounce it wrong again, Peloton? The famous Peloton ad from 2019 where she gets the Peloton as a gift for Christmas, and it had all that backlash. And she was this, professional. So I'm dying to hear your guys, if you have any examples of something that's really resonated with you, with your own experience, what it's like to be this individual that, balances being a female and those responsibilities, and also, being a professional. So if either of you know of any, whoever wants to go first, because I couldn't think of anything.
I'll add to the question is we're sitting here in February of 2024, and America Ferrera is nominated for an Academy Award for basically her monologue in Barbie about the challenges of being, a woman leader in the workplace and a proud woman in the workplace. So if that's a helpful launching point, I'm curious to your thoughts there as well.
I think that there is probably more content, more media around us than there ever has been with women in kind of leadership roles. Nothing for me necessarily stands out, as any different, but I think even like there are all of the shows that are political where you've got some women who are Secretary of State in this show, or Vice President, and that, and having a woman Vice President in real life, amazing. And I think at the same time, one of the things for me is I want to, let's say I want to run a Fortune 500 company, right? I don't necessarily see a lot of women doing that in real life, but the ones that do, it's really cool, and you get to hear about their stories and their experiences. And so for me, it's almost those real life stories. At the same time, I think you can take a piece of media and say, oh, I want to aspire to be the CEO of this company that there's a show based on, even if it's a man. And I want to kind of take those same traits and the same things that I'm seeing and put those into action. Nothing for me really stands out as like, this is the show where I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it. But I think the real life stories to me resonate even more. But I would love to, maybe we need to put an agency together and put together some more cool TV shows and movies and piece of content around some of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie, do you have anything that you can think of that has resonated with you?
I think throughout, my life, the one brand that I can say I always felt was progressive and trended well with women, and then what it's like to be a person, is Nike. They always maintained this focus of the strength that they were giving you in the items you were purchasing from them. There was always a focus on the what was actually happening and not the person doing it. But every time I saw a Nike campaign, it made me feel like I could run faster. It made me feel like I could do better. And it didn't make me feel, oh well, this is their woman version and this is their man's version or whatever. And now I can't remember the name of their campaign specifically, but they have done a lot to advance all identities, in what they've done to support their efforts and just being a overall more inclusive brand.
That's a good one. I like Nike.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was thinking of Athleta when you were talking about that because I own a lot of Athleta, and I really like how they balance working like commute to work clothes for people who live in urban areas versus spending time outdoors versus spending time in your home doing some sort of practice yoga or anything like that. And they don't represent the females in a way that's like makes them seem cutesy or weak. It seems like very, very real women that are living their lives and balancing working and working out and mental health and things like that. And I do appreciate them for that. And I think they actually are sponsoring. I saw some of their. I think they were sponsoring the Olympics. There was something where I saw jerseys, Athleta jerseys in I would say the Winter Olympics.
So they're not sponsoring us yet.
Oh,
I think being
Now that we've
being able to
mentioned
bring
them,
anything that's practical and authentic, I think you're really going to grab, um, what people are feeling the most of. Just showing people who they are, and showing those kind of things and how they can be used together are such a great way to really gain traction with a whole host of people.
yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing reminds me of. Do you remember? I can't even keep track of what month it is. Maybe the summer or fall when there was that conference, that tech conference that oh, it was a women of color in tech or something, and one of the speakers dropped out, so then they used AI to create to create a speaker in the meantime, and then the whole conference got canceled because this woman
Right.
doesn't
they
even
got caught.
exist.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
wow.
like,
Yeah. I did hear about that. I think it, there's no substitute for you can't get away with a token woman or a token person of color. There's no substitute for it. And it's not just about the image or the face or the name, the headline, that they're keynoting. It's about what they bring to the organization and what they bring to the people around them. So yeah, you can't get away with it.
yeah, absolutely.
I want to be mindful of your time, and I want to kind of throw a broad question at you both to kind of close it out. Lauren, you mentioned some of the folks that had supported you coming up in your journey towards leadership, and Robbie, I'm sure you've had some as well. You mentioned Lauren, I think some of the men who've supported you along the way, which is great to hear. So, what are some of the advices that you would give to workplaces? You both have a lot of workplace insight on how you can support women leaders in their growth and development, and any sort of tips you could offer.
Robbie, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I would say that what really stands out to me is companies that are embodying the values and demonstrating what they want to see be the change. When I think of an example of the cliche of putting a pride flag on your logo during Pride Month, when really what matters most is the steps you're taking to foster better, safer, more inclusive, and mentally healthy environments. Instead of a symbolic gesture like that, I'm interested in knowing what companies are actively doing to champion the change they want to see in their workplace and their communities. Market your inclusive hiring practices. Market how you're helping support marginalized communities. Market your advocacy efforts for meaningful policy changes, including mental health. Just really be authentic to the commitment of progress, and that will stand out most to me and probably a lot of people.
Yeah, for me, I would say my biggest advice is start the conversation and always look for those places where you can speak up for the people around you. The When we talk about gender in the workplace, or we talk about inequity in the workplace, maybe as a broader term because it's not just gender, we know. But when we talk about something like inequity, it is everyone's responsibility. It's not a woman's issue. It's not just on women. It's everybody's issue. And it is making our companies less successful, and it is making our world less inclusive. And so it is on all of us. And so when we talk about, okay, diversity issues in the workplace, it is on folks who are white just as much as it's on people of color. And really, it shouldn't be on people of color much at all, because they're the ones who are experiencing that, right? And so I always want to take a look around me and say, where am I in a position of influence, or a position of power, or a position to even speak up on what issues we're facing? I want to be an ally to the next person as much as I hope that others are allies to us. And so we're building a better world together. I'm really excited to start the conversation, excited for podcasts like this, chances to say, hey, everybody, we've got this really, really important directive, and we're building a better world together. I'm really excited for what's to come and what we can achieve.
I love that. And I would say, I always try to have takeaways because there's so much media out there and so many podcasts, and I feel like a lot of times you never really walk away with any specific takeaways. And my takeaway to the audience would be, in the next couple of weeks or the next month, really challenge yourself to question a bias. Maybe take a step back and think, wow, was that the right way to have approached that? Or maybe this person didn't mean that in this way, and maybe it's my own bias. And we encounter them every single day. So that's what I would ask everyone who's listening and watching, is to really find an opportunity to check that bias and try to put yourself in their shoes and not just assume the worst.
And take others with you. Use them as an opportunity to help yourself and help them. Take your friends with you.
Yeah, that's a great
And part
point.
of building this environment, we know that, sharing what matters most with the people around us will help really craft what we want to see most in the world. And I know sometimes I'll bring things to Lauren, as she's become a very big mentor to me, of being a leader, and say, I thought of it this way. What is your thought process? Or maybe am I thinking about that incorrectly? And just having those open and honest conversations that challenge maybe your initial beliefs. I think every time you do that, there's growth.
Oh, absolutely. And Sean, that's one of the things I love about you is we do that all the time. Sean and I come from very different backgrounds, and there's been times I've called you and been like, "Is it okay to say this? Is this offensive if I say this word or do
And
this?"
vice
And just
versa, yeah.
just asking. I mean, it should never be. And on the flip side, someone should never get offended if someone's really curious and genuinely trying to become a better person from it by asking,
Leaders
right?
ask for
Because
help.
yeah,
Leaders don't know have all the
exactly,
answers. The leaders ask for help, ask questions.
exactly.
I want to be mindful, Lauren, of your hard stop. Thank you both so much for joining us. This was a treat.
And we didn't
Likewise.
even fight. No one
I
even fought.
No,
know. We don't know how to.
I was
Yeah, I
waiting
don't.
for
I
it.
don't know that I could figure it out.
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Thank
Thank you
you.
Thank you
for having us, Lisa.
so
Great
much.
connecting.
Yes. Oh boy, that was so insightful. I mean, just refreshingly positive, right? The conversation around gender inequality and talking to two people who aren't bitter and aren't cynical and aren't jaded, but literally want what's best for everyone. It's so refreshing.
You made an amazing point off mic, and I wish you'd captured it. And I had said after we closed our intro, I said like I don't know really what I'm going to say on here, and you said no. I mean, men have to be part of this conversation, and Lauren said it well. You're right, and Lauren said it well. If the men that have helped her kind of come up in her career as well, are not to go without credit. So it is an overarching conversation. It'd be nice to have. I'll throw in a quick sidebar. I worked at a large law firm at one point, and they had a kind of a women's appreciation day during March, I believe. I'd imagine that was when it was for International Women's Day, and that's great. And it's great to acknowledge the efforts of women at the firm. But as I talked to my boss, who was a woman, I said like, it's the day when they don't have to do this. And this isn't even a conversation point because it's just so it's not noticeable that there are women in leadership because there are so many, and it's not even something that we have to sort of distinguish and set aside. And she wholeheartedly agreed, but by that same token, it is still very much an accomplishment. These are still leaders that need and deserve a whole ton of credit for how far they've gender regardless how far they've come as leaders. So it was great to hear from them. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, I've had some really incredible professional men in my life. I mean, some of the most I'd say almost all of my bosses have been men, and I've learned so much from them, and they've treated me with so much respect. And I don't know if I just, got lucky. Um, but I have mad respect for men in the workplace, and I have had a few experiences um, of discrimination and things like that, and really everybody has, but it is kind of this interesting balance of recognizing who you are and your background, but then also not making it be everything about you, right? And I think as a society, we're still trying to figure that out, what that looks like.
I've worked with a lot of female bosses and female leaders, some of whom, forged very tough exteriors. I'm sure is a lot of the result of the environments they came up under. And I see that some of whom did not, maybe as a result of the people who supported them as they were coming up. And I see that as well. But so much to learn and so much to offer. So
Yeah.
it's neat to kind of hear that perspective and get the inside take.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was What a great episode. I mean, really, we've had so many incredible folks, and I feel like we've never had a guest that was like mean, or just I feel like everyone we talk to on this show
And
is
we
just
cherry pick our guests. It's kind of the advantage of being able to find nice people. Season
yeah.
3 is the all asshole edition.
Oh
Just wait,
man,
it's
I can
coming.
think of a few.
It's coming. We're gonna get our enemies list and just start calling free exposure, and we're just gonna berate them. I
Oh.
can't wait.
Oh, let's see. Uh,
Season 4 is all X's, so just
Susan,
that gets spicy.
what is that? 2025 is gonna get real.
Oh yeah. Oh, things are going down.
Oh god. Oh my goodness grief. Okay, we're gonna end it. We're gonna end it now.
That's probably for the
We're
best.
gonna end it now. I'm gonna say my bit. Alicia DeSantis, owner of 38th and Kip Studio. You can find me on Instagram at 38 and Kip. You can find me on LinkedIn, all over the place. You can search 38andkip.com. Um, I'm not on TikTok, so don't search for me there. I know Sean is on TikTok.
I am, but I haven't posted anything in a long time. I don't really post that much. I don't love it. It's not my cup of tea. I don't know. But I
So
am
where do
other
people find
places.
you?
So, well, you can find The Right Stuff Agency, WRITE, at therightstuff.agency, not .com, .agency. You can find Instagram, The Right Stuff Agency. You can search my Facebook. I have a business Facebook page that I should be using more, but you can always find my personal, which is Shaun, Shaun Bernstein. Check the show notes. Happy to connect. I post a lot of my content there. Right Stuff Agency has a Facebook page. I might have had an X account, formerly Twitter, at some point. I'm around. I'm not hard to find, and I'd love to connect and help you tell your
I
story.
love it. I love it. On that note, that's a wrap. Thanks for everyone watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.